Are you recording?
I don't think so. I'm not. I don't think so. I'm like, no, we're good.
All right. Welcome to Creative Compulsions, where we unravel the future classics of tomorrow while honoring the classics of yesterday. It's more than a podcast. It's an unabashed deep dive into the world of entertainment and current events through the eyes of young Hollywood. No drama or topic is off the table. Let's start the show.
Let's go.
This is Creative Compulsions.
I love that part.
Yeah, so grab your popcorn or coffee. Troy is a big coffee person. Should we do intros?
Yeah, we have to do intros. I was going to say, pause, intro. Who are you? Why are we listening to you?
What? Yeah. Who are you? My name is Martinez. I will be your host today. And you might know me from like The Walking Dead, Primo, and Magnum P.I. I am an actor. And I'm with my co-host here, Troy Hatt. He is an actor, writer, and self-improvement aficionado.
Nice. Nailed it.
Is that Spanish?
I don't know. Anyway, I call myself part goof, part truth. Sometimes I'm an NPC, which means I just walk in behind actors. That's part of how I make ends meet. And I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to be here. Because if we weren't here...
Prove it.
I would not have a home. Yeah, so back to grabbing your popcorn or coffee. Troy's a big coffee person.
Oh yeah, I love coffee.
What is your go-to coffee order? I need to know, what keeps the fuel in the tank?
I'm the most basic. I'm literally iced coffee with oat milk. I sound like what?
Sweetener?
Sometimes sweetener, and sometimes I just drink. Black coffee can be very satisfying. You'll come to find out that I feel like I have many different facets of my personality. So sometimes I'm hot black coffee in a mug, but mostly I make my coffee at home, and I put this Trader Joe's creamer in my coffee, and iced coffee is what I prefer. It just
Trader
keeps
Joe's.
me cool.
What's
Trader Joe's.
Hey, Trader Joe's, you wanna just?
Oh, it's like brown sugar and oat milk or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you could order any coffee in the world, you don't have a it's just drip coffee.
No,
with a
I'm
splash of oat milk. Are you a color person? Because I'm a color guy.
If it depends.
It has to be a certain color. I like a good
I like
a Halle Berry or something.
I like a good. I was gonna say beige, but Halle Berry works. What?
I worked on.
You didn't look like Halle Berry. I'm not interested. You can keep it.
No, I worked on a show, and the PA that was just taking care of me most of the time, he would always be like, "Martin, coffee?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You want a Whitney Houston, Halle Berry?"
My God.
And he's...
I'm afraid to ask what race he was.
He's African American.
Yeah, we good.
I love him. He's great, and a screenwriter as well. And I was like, oh, let's go Halle Berry. He's like, Halle Berry. And that was my coffee.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I think, is that terrible? Should I not?
We'll find out.
Oh, you wanted Halle Berry? No.
Okay, so for our inaugural episode, it was inspired by a confession. And what was that confession, Martin Martinez?
The confession?
From Never Have I Ever.
I have never seen Hocus Pocus.
Shame. Not. Anyways, that was mind-boggling to me, and I was like, can that be our first film that we kind of dissect a little bit and discuss?
And I think it is.
It is.
In lieu of the season.
Yes.
'Tis the season. So in this episode, we're going to revisit the cult classic Hocus Pocus, which returned to theaters this month to celebrate its 40-year anniversary. We went back to the theaters to witness history in the making. So join us as we unravel our thoughts through the eyes of someone watching it for the first time versus someone who grew up with it embedded in their DNA. It's just not Halloween without Hocus Pocus.
It's not. It's not Halloween without Hocus Pocus. That's a fact.
Yeah. But before we dive into the Hocus Pocus of
it's
it
time
all,
for the 5-minute catch-up.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what's been going on? Taylor Swift is continuing to take over the world. I got to see her concert film for the first time at AMC theaters in a packed house, and it was a very moving experience. I grew up listening to Taylor Swift, and she's kind of embedded in our society over the years.
She is society.
She is
You're
society.
You're the world. Everyone's a Swiftie.
I went in completely blind, not knowing what to expect, but I knew there was going to be like a raucous group of fans in there, and I was like, how crazy are we going to get? And within like 15 minutes, I was literally just kind of weeping. Her songs are incredibly moving. I felt like I was seeing something special. I feel like she's taken over the world, and she's starting to be deservedly in the conversation with people like Whitney Houston and Michael Jackson that have made people so crazy. I'm talking like that I didn't get to see the concert, so I'm experiencing everything for the first time, and there were a lot of people there that were experiencing it for the first time, because there was some guy that was just like, this was his church. He was
Wait, I heard that it's an Eras tour, right?
Yeah.
Did you dress up?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, no.
Did you feel out of place a little bit?
Not at all.
Did everybody dress up?
I don't know. I didn't see a ton of
just...
people. Maybe I went to the theater late and it was dark.
No, it was right. People are going and they're dressing like full on costume. That was the idea of it.
Yeah, not what I noticed. I just think there's a level of like. This is what made me emotional. There is a level of, I'm getting emotional talking about it. There is a level of joy that she brings to the table. You know, there's been a lot of people that have disappointed us as people over the years in Hollywood. We've just spent 5 years completely unraveling Hollywood. And there's some really bad people out there. But there's also people that have just made mistakes, like all of us. And it's hard to believe in a person nowadays, because we see every day how faulted they are, and it's punched at us all the time on the news. And here's somebody who has survived all that despite public scrutiny, and it's somebody everyone feels comfortable getting behind in a major way. That is the most amount of pressure.
Yeah.
And we're there. We've found somebody that literally is changing the world again, and just never thought that we'd be here.
Yeah.
My husband is his name's Jerome, and he's a huge Whitney Houston and Diana Ross fan, and he got to experience those eras vividly, and he's a huge Swiftie, to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm not as big of a fan as some people are. I'm not good. I've never been that type of fan. I absolutely adore her. Her music moves me. There are songs of hers that I love that are embedded into my life, and yeah, it was beautiful to watch. I'm glad that I got to experience it, and I'll never forget it.
That's awesome. So would you go again?
No, I already saw it.
I think she's gonna release another one.
Oh yeah, no, I would go again. I think the next one's Beyonce, so I'll be interested to see how that one is.
Yeah, I know there's some comparison there, but I agree with you. I think Taylor Swift, she has risen above the criticism. One, she's unapologetically herself, which is just a good person. And two, was that three?
And
2 or 3. Yeah, she's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, I think, pop star right now since Michael Jackson.
When it comes to numbers and facts, It'd be hard-pressed to find somebody else that is getting those types of numbers. I mean, I think she just took over Barbie with certain numbers. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
She pushed out the film slate in the studio theatrical releases because they don't want to compete with Taylor Swift.
This is star power.
Yeah. Legendary.
Before we get started, I do want to talk about Suzanne Summers passed away this week, and you know, there's a retro element to our show because we like to honor, you know, the classic films of the past. We'll talk about the classic TV shows. Three's Company, and I grew up on Step by Step. And she's also one of the first celebrities I ever met in my life. So talking like being 7 years old in downtown Vancouver, Canada, and seeing this huge celebrity in my eyes, and walk through the streets in the dark in this huge kind of like what I now know is like a comfortable set jacket because it was probably cold. And she knew people were kind of eyeing her. And I got to watch like a movie I think it was like a TV movie being made. And I'll never forget that experience of seeing the girl that I grew up watching, as the mom on Step by Step. And so, rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
What is that? What is that term? That she's her?
Oh, she is her.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be... I'm really excited to dive into this episode of Hocus Pocus. And I felt like it was inspired by October, the time of Hallows Eve. Spooky season, candy, and sweater weather. Hocus Pocus is directed by Kenny Ortega, starring Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, Kathy Najimy, Omri Katz, Thora Birch, released in 1993 by Walt Disney Pictures and Buena Vista Pictures.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. And it's really important to know that we both went to the theaters to watch this film together, and I'd never seen it on the big screen before. But more importantly, Martin hasn't seen it at all, and I actually have no idea what he's going to say. So I have two very specific questions to get us started. And it's, what did you feel immediately after you finished watching the movie? Because again, we didn't chat after the film. We just kind of let everything sit. And now that it's been like, say, 3 days since we watched it, how do you feel about it now as compared to when you've kind of walked out of the theater?
Yeah. I feel the same as I felt now then, and it felt like a sweater, like a warm sweater, I liked the film. It was engaging. I was super engaged with it. It was fun. I liked the nostalgic effect to it, kind of that 90s vibe. And I think it was executed very well, given the time that it was released. And now it still has replayability, rewatchability, because I thought it was really entertaining, and I think it made me feel more festive in this time of absolutely. Halloween. You know what I mean? Absolutely. Well, that's what it's supposed to do. It's
got us in the mood,
Hocus Pocus. Yeah, literally. I didn't want to. Before we dived in, I didn't want to talk about any spoilers, but I think it's safe.
I think we're safe. Yeah.
Say, yeah.
I'm like, if any episode, this is the one where we don't have to think about.
It's probably one of the top Halloween flicks of all time, along with others such as A Nightmare Before Christmas, Beetlejuice, Halloween, The Shining, The Craft. I loved The Craft. Monster House is my personal favorite. You've seen that one? You haven't seen Monster House? Oh no!
You if you hit me with animation, there's a good chance anything
You've
after
seen the
Aladdin.
movie, have you?
Yes, I grew up on Goof Troop.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know it
the
off by heart. I don't know
great.
it off by heart, but yeah, it's beloved.
I love it.
Leaning
Okay.
Tower Cheetah.
Yeah, and my favorite scene is when they're having the pizza and it's dripped down and it's just super cheesy madness and
TV.
or what's the other guy? Chase. Yeah. Okay. Ghostbusters, Halloween Town, and so many more.
Yeah, like Casper needs to be in that.
Oh yeah.
Those are my two.
Yeah.
But keep going.
Casper, that is a good one. When was the first time that you watched Hocus Pocus?
I don't remember the specific first time, but I do remember the specific experience that I would have watching films with my sister growing up. We would edge ourselves up right up close to the TV. We'd probably rent it the night before because we didn't get Disney in Canada without having
Hey, did you know that if you sit too close to the TV, your eyes would get stuck like that? Now we have screens like this, like the Oculus.
I'm like, I wanted them to get stuck like that. I was enjoying myself. But anyways, yeah, we would sit way too close. We'd have our snacks, and we would watch it at nighttime, wake up in the morning at 9 o'clock. Sister would wake me up and do you want to watch it again? Absolutely. And that movie was never dull. It was always entertaining.
So that's like a go-to Halloween movie that you're going to play.
And Casper are
currently,
honestly, the only two that I will...
Since then and now, that's
Actually, this year, I would not watch Hocus Pocus because sometimes I've seen movies way too often, but when the opportunity came for the 40th anniversary to watch it on the screen, I literally got tickets for myself just to go by myself at night and go, oh, am I going to go or am I not? Mm-hmm. And then we had a discussion and we're like, is this the film? Is this going to be our first film we're going to kind of discuss? And we did, and then we got to see it together, and seeing it on the big screen was a whole other experience, but we'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, it was a lot of Hocus Pocus.
Just a little Hocus Pocus.
No, but for me, sometimes, festive movies have to be played during that time. Like Christmas,
Fair.
Like you just got to put something on. You got to put a Christmas movie on. You know?
And you can watch Home Alone in February, but it doesn't hit as hard.
Yeah. No, for sure. That's why I was wondering if that was like a film that you would play during Halloween. You know, like if you're making like Halloween cocktails and baking some Halloween cookies, you're gonna be putting it on the TV.
I remember opening up Casper specifically because I don't think I owned Hocus Pocus, but I did own Casper. I can see the case in my head, and I played the crap out of that movie. And Hocus Pocus was always, I don't know, I'd either rent it or it'd always be on, and I'd be like, oh yeah, we're tuning in for that one for sure.
We have to talk about our Halloween favorite like candies and things and everything. We have to get to that. Okay. But I do want to talk about the Hocus Pocus of it all. My first impressions, automatically, it's nostalgic, right? Like I'm not sure if I can call myself a 90s kid because I grew up in the very end of the 90s, but the whole tone of the film is a blast from the past. And I think that was super enjoyable, you know?
Nostalgia is crack, Eduardo Franco. It's a quote.
Oh, is it? And it just felt like watching it for the first time reminded me of what most movies were about in the 90s, where the classic kid like moves from his hometown and he goes to a new town, a new school, the trouble of making new friends, finding his new groove in a new environment, everything. I said new a lot. And those are things that I can relate to as well, because I moved quite a bunch myself. But I think the impact of this now in today's world might be a little bit different because I think we were talking about this. It's so much easier to stay connected with social media and technology.
Right.
I guess it might be like safe to say it's easier to stay in touch or plugged in.
Exactly.
Or on the flip side of that, it can be more isolating. Like before, if we moved into a new environment, you know, we were forced to develop and cultivate a form of community in the physical world. And now I guess like your online community or persona can differ greatly from that real persona. And the community, you know, in your, I don't know what the word is, like immediate environment.
Right.
But that's why I thought it was interesting because now he's forced to have to explore. You have to go out and you have to create those relationships. You have to create that community, and you can't hide behind the technology or.
We're not taking our world with us wherever we go, which we have in our hands now. So yeah, every place you touch down in. I mean, you know this more than I did. I mean, I moved here from Vancouver to LA 15 years ago, and I remember that feeling of being in a new place and having to make new friends. I knew one person and that was it. I left my best friends and my family at home. So yeah. I can attest to that too. So there's a part of it. But what's really exciting is that he starts off the movie as a skeptic. And so we watch the movie and we're in, you know, we have to get invested ourselves. So we turn on the film, we're like, okay, is this going to be scary? What's kind of the tone of it? And in reality, you're kind of forced to go along with the lead character who all of a sudden is forced to believe as all these magical things start happening. So versus scary, this is one of those rare films that kind of has more of a magic euphoria to it versus the scary element, which is something that sometimes we miss out on Halloween.
Yeah, it's a different kind of vibe, for sure. You know, I think I wrote like a slasher or something. It's more of like a magical kind of piece, you know, and it kind of takes you away from it, talks about the folklore, kind of hints at it, implements it in that world at that time. And
Disney is Disney.
Yeah, but there were some things actually that I was thinking about because I was like, it was rated, I think on its release, it was rated PG, and now I think it would be like TV 14 or PG 14 or something like that.
Come little children, you know,
like they're being burned in the thing, and I was like, oh, you know, or what was the thing that the Yabas? Yabos. Also, that's probably my favorite word now. I need to watch.
And once you get it right, it's going to be your even more
Every
favorite.
time I've referenced it, I'm like Yabas. Yabas sounds like right.
Yeah, it's just a different thing.
It's just what is that? What is Yabas?
I don't know. It sounds like a kids band. Anyway, keep going.
But speaking of the 90s, I'm here for the 90s attire. Like the crew neck sweatshirt with the undershirt paired with the jeans.
I noticed that.
Is a vibe.
Absolutely.
And we're seeing that more now, actually, which is cool. You know, everything kind
of
recycles.
We're back, dude.
Yeah.
Which is what makes this movie even more special, because everything in that movie, from the fashion on, is completely being re-implemented into society in the best way, because there's so much freedom in it.
Yeah.
And I'm actually having a blast
You're right. We are back. We're fully back. Actually, it's completely
We're
nice
so
back,
back.
and we're just leaning more and more into it.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. Like even the house and the setting, it also feels super homey and cozy. The world also feels small when I was watching it. That's what was something that felt that stood out to me. And even through our main character Max, he moved into a new town. We don't necessarily know why, and we don't care. And because after all that opening, it started with the opening of like witches from 300 years ago, you know, and then it just jumped to like current.
Present time?
Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting because at that time they were burned at the stake. Yeah.
Right.
That's why I feel like in PG, 14 maybe.
And yeah. It's such a great element when they pop in, and I mean, it's kind of like a trope by now, but the fact of being like fish out of water, you know, those witches being in almost like a time travel environment, which is leaning towards Back to the Future, which I absolutely love. So that was an amazing element to it, and it was fun watching them just be kind of
Witches.
just shocked by all the modern technology.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no. But I think that's what stuck out to me as well was the rating, because it's interesting because I feel like people were less offended then. I don't know if I could say that. Maybe not.
No, I mean, it's fine. I mean, I think
because they did say something like the Yabos.
there's
You know, it might.
there's
fly
positive
today.
there's positive and negatives with all of it. You know, Hollywood has spent the last like few years cleaning up so much of the messes that we've allowed for so many years. And you know, it's like using a bomb to kill an anthill. It's like there are some things that are falling by the wayside and some things that are coming back. There's a creative freedom that are coming back, and people want to laugh again. People want to be silly again, and people want to be daring again. But we don't want people's lives to be altered by certain jokes. And I mean,
Like comfort television.
well, if you really want to get into it, one of the things I really did notice was that there was not much integration in this entire film. The cop is white. The best friend is white. The two bullies are white. And look how far we've come. You know, we've opened everything up. All of those different cast members would be integrated and you'd have a lot more color and show a lot more of how society has really always been, but showing up on screen, and shows how far we've come, and I think we should applaud that.
No, definitely. I guess I wouldn't say offended. Like it's not as literal, but maybe less open or more open. I don't know how it was.
Cautious, yeah.
Because what was interesting when I was watching it, I feel like I was able to maybe less offended, I would say. Well, they were saying things that they were making jokes about, like the Virgin and stuff like that, you know, or whatever, in a kid's film, and I thought that was interesting. I feel like, okay, that was okay. Like, nobody's gonna be like, oh, not gonna let my child watch Hocus Pocus because it's offensive.
You know, we can really get into it because it's like the kids are a lot smarter now because they're being raised by social media on the side. And so what would happen is you'd watch a Disney film, the adults would get the adult jokes and the kids would get the kids jokes, and there was this divide.
That's true.
And in reality nowadays, kids are whip smart at 6 years old, and you can't really get anything past them. So we do have to be a little bit more careful, but also be entertaining.
Yeah, it's not going to completely fly over their heads. It was interesting when I was watching that too, about that about being open and stuff. The modern architecture now compared to the 90s, the design of homes are like modern architecture now is more private and closed off, usually consisting of like hedges and a gate, etc. You know what I mean? And it's rare now to find homes with like large porches. We used to have large porches, and people would sit out on their porches and people would watch and talk to their neighbors and look over their fence and compare barbecue grills.
Yeah, instead of scrolling social, they were just sitting out there and waiting for a follower.
Yeah. But I think we were more open, and I also think that we were kind of more vulnerable, interesting,
Forced to be.
in a way, and more open to being ourselves. But I don't know. But let's talk about the witches,
Let's do it. I mean, let's talk about
which were brilliant portrayed.
Bette Midler, icon, Broadway star, movie star, and she stole the film. She was absolutely incredible. And again, this was my first time watching it on the big screen, and I get chills when I talk about it. So.
Stole the film. They were all pretty brilliant, though. Like, they were all equally, like, just really cooking in the right, fully committed to their craft, fully committed to their characters, and they never faltered. If anything, they found more nuances.
Bette Midler stars Catherine Najimy and Sarah Jessica Parker. And Bette Midler, of course, she's an icon. She's a movie star. Just a legend in her own right. But the thing is she stole that movie. She created this character. And the thing is like watching it on the big screen. This is my first time watching it on the big screen before. And there were parts in that movie where I was like, I had never laughed in certain parts of the movie before. And mind you, this movie's a part of my DNA. And I just, for some reason, when you blow it up on the big screen, you're going to get a different facet of this movie that you wouldn't expect. And she was just making me die in certain aspects. And when you blew her up, she was... And I also got to watch, like, Catherine Najimy just kind of be on the side, because even though Bette Midler was taking up the frame, you just see her, like, they're just staying in character and adding something. They're not just listening. They're in their own worlds. Both of them are. And yet it doesn't feel distracting. It just feels exciting. It was cool to watch.
I love the lip that...
Do the thing.
It was like this. Oh. It was great. I mean, I think they were wonderful, and it made everything work so well. But what piqued my interest too was how they were displayed and portrayed as witches. You know what I mean? And the choices that they made, because I feel like at that time, they really leaned into like the grotesque aspect. They were kind of inarticulate, unintelligent in a way, like disfigured and foolish. Yeah, they were right. They were disfigured.
Okay, so Sarah Jessica Parker was like part of my sexual awakening. I mean, she's gorgeous in this film, and they don't really shy away from kind of like showing her.
Yeah. She was this flirty, outgoing, but she was flirting with all.
She's the definition of blondes just have more fun, as they used to say back in the day. She is just kind of like hilarious and cute and playful and slightly exposed. And I've been on Disney sets nowadays, and they don't allow stuff like that anymore. Yeah. But it was definitely a selling point for, I'm sure, a lot of adults that were watching it with their kids and were like, "Oh, this is a dumb movie. Wait, who's that?"
Yeah, but that was after she like absorbed the youth. You know what I mean? Like, right? So,
is that when she popped out? Yeah.
Right?
I don't remember.
No, yeah.
You might be right.
Because when the opening, they all had the prosthetics and everything. They had that, and they were still kind of like foolish and ditzy. Like the two sisters, were like running into each other, and
I love it.
It added so much dynamic to it. But that's what I was thinking about, how witches, the portrayal of witches, have evolved from then to now, like pretty exponentially. Sure. We've seen that with like the original Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Charmed.
Drew on it. Charmed didn't. But Jerome did background work on that back in the day.
And I feel like over time they like evolved into like these like gothic, black-lipped cool cats that knew something that we didn't, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, they evolved. They started to become a little bit more, I don't know, pay homage.
Less grotesque. And they started to take on the hero position. They're the heroine. Heroine? Is that how you say it?
Heroine. Yeah. Weird. Never really put those two words together, but I guess they're very similar.
The heroine of, yeah.
In fact, to be honest, nowadays it would just be hero again.
The hero.
Because it's kind of like actor-actress, right?
And I think it evolved into emphasizing sisterhood, which it did then.
Nice, yeah, like bringing women together.
Being a witch started to become cool.
Kill people. Yeah. Just kidding.
Well, now they're using their powers to change the world, and they feel like outcasts that found other like-minded folk to band together in display of introspection and spirituality and mysticism. So there's a little bit more depth to them now, which I think was interesting.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And
it's evolving. Yeah. Jinx!
But I've always been interested in folklore, and it's interesting now to see the depiction of these archetypal monsters evolve. Embracing the new, I guess.
We're back to Taylor Swift.
But talking about like these like kind of stereotypes, of course we had our stereotypical bullies.
Yes.
Which haven't changed much. They have changed, but they haven't. They're still,
They
like,
pop
the
back up.
underlying-
They pop back up nowadays, except it's more ethnically diverse usually in the castings of. Honestly, those were the ones I would go out for and not get. You know what I mean? And then you show up and boom.
But as an audience, we're still trained to dislike them. You know, they're portrayed inside of the film, of course. Right?
And
They're-
bullies haven't gone away.
Yeah, it's the. But they've evolved from what we've seen, because they were kind of like, you know, like a couple of brain cells too short. You know.
Right. Yeah.
And then Hocus Pocus, of course, in that time, it really played into these stereotypes, extremely on the nose. But now, like, the bad boys have a certain edge or sexiness to them.
Absolutely, yeah.
More facets and
Even
more-
though the blonde guy was also part of my sexual awakening.
Hocus Pocus is really, really did it for you.
I got it where I could get it.
Yeah, but they have more facets now. I think it's interesting as well. Like, it just showed the evolution. Like, kind of all the characters now have more grace and more space to have more depth. Yeah. And they have more nuances to them, right?
Absolutely,
Is that
yeah.
how you felt about watching, like, the bullies? That's what stood out to me about those
Yeah, in my
guys.
head I was probably beside you going like, oh, here we go. He's going to be like, either these two kids are going to hit and you're going to find it funny, or you're going to be like, ooh, we've regressed.
Yeah.
And I honestly, watching it with somebody is we're going to find out because we're going to watch all these different movies together. But it changes. I watch it partially through your eyes because I'm so empathetic. And so when I see them, I go like, oh, are these kids going to deliver for Martin over here? Like, what are we doing? And I just thought they were so funny, almost like undeniably on. And that's kind of like snaps for Kenny Ortega.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was brilliant. The execution was really brilliant. But they weren't portrayed to be liked in any case. In any way. I think outside of what they were supposed to do.
Right,
You know,
which was we like them because they're entertaining,
Exactly.
even though they're bullies. And that is...
But in terms of the story, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't get more Disney than that, though.
The CGI cat, I thought was great. You know,
I'd be hard-pressed to disagree.
especially at the time, given that the release, I was thinking that the 40-year.
I thought it was going to be
Cinema?
rough, especially on the big screen. I actually don't know if they did anything to punch it up because it was going to be shown on the big screen again. I don't know if they did anything with it. But I thought that honestly, I thought the CGI cat was sometimes even better than some of the things that they're doing now, because there is a level of magic. Like, he almost looked like a Cheshire cat's face on a regular cat because he had these, like, glowing yellow eyes. And I also loved the way that they moved. They made sure that, like, the CGI was as minimal as possible. Like, they made their work as easy as possible by having, like, the cat would, like, run across frame really quickly, and so you would get this essence of the cat without having to, like, have that CGI cat on screen the whole time. And I'm like, brilliant.
Clever filmmaking.
That's exactly what a cat would do.
Yeah.
Too, versus like, ooh, spent all this time on the CGI cat, I better feature it as often as possible, and that's like we're losing a little bit of that story. So if anything, I actually was pleasantly surprised and also went, yeah, I missed some of this stuff.
It was made to work, and it worked well, especially given the time. But I think the benefit of watching that in the theater, there was quite a bit of chuckles from the other three people in the theater with us.
We went at 2:30 in the afternoon, okay? So we have to say that. It was a packed house the night before.
But throughout the film, especially from, like, the cheesiness of the dialogue and the comments sometimes, but particularly...
Oh, I think you meant classicness, but keep going.
But particularly the scenes with the cat, there was a moment where you knew it was just a deflated stuffed animal. And that was, I think...
This cat was deflated, and the people behind us died.
Yeah.
And literally, if I had something in my mouth, I would have spit it out because I went... Sorry. I just spat all over
It's
Martin.
okay. That's all right. Actually, it didn't hit me, so you're safe. This is the wet zone. But no, I think it worked, and I think it worked really well. And I think the film overall, of course, being a classic and a Halloween staple, was executed very accordingly and very well. Like, I found myself not only enjoying the story and engaged the entire time, though the finale for me felt a little bit kind of dragged out slightly. I enjoyed the time traveling aspect of it as well. You know, I couldn't help but think about how far we've come in cinema and as a society, but also was awed by the notion that human stories and tales always kind of remain fundamentally the same. You know what I mean? The needs, objectives, and desires.
Absolutely.
The young love captured on the film, The virgin remarks were kind of interesting. I think we talked about that a little bit earlier.
Yeah. Well, it was just part of the humor, and you know what? Sometimes
And it changes, you know.
Well, also, the thing is like some of these things are life, and it's not about PC or cancel culture. It's literally about the fact that we can talk about these things. They don't actually have to be as taboo. So I don't mind the humor, and also feel like the humor that certain parts of that humor it is welcomed.
I just felt like we felt embarrassed, and like the character felt like kind of looked down upon for being a virgin.
We felt that shame.
And that was an interesting take. Like I mean, I think these kids are supposed to be in high school, right? Aren't they? So I just imagine a bunch of little kids after seeing Hocus Pocus in the theater in the 1990s be like, "You're a virgin."
What's a virgin?
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I'm a virgin.
Yeah. I was like, that's interesting. That's why I think the TV rating for me, I was like, okay, that if it was released today, I think that it would have been a different rating. Surprisingly, like I didn't find anything, you know, but I think in today's standards, it might have exceeded the PG rating. You know, it's not like a Frozen or something.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
But overall, like I really enjoyed the thematics of the film, which centered around family and the unbreakable bond between siblings, and I think that was really powerful.
Chills. Yeah.
I think there's like a big rewatchability aspect to the film. It's not just nostalgic for like those who have grew up with it, but it still is a great Halloween holiday film. And clearly, from what we discussed earlier, their overall ideals in certain areas may have shifted a bit and changed given the 40 years from its release to now, but I think it's aged appropriately, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And the big thing for me is like, you know, I watch certain movies and I'm super nostalgic, and I will rewatch certain films and I'll be like, that doesn't hold up. So remember, I think we were talking about it. We're like, classic or overrated? And for me, it still holds up as a classic. It's 40 years old.
No, it's awesome.
It's still being watched, and it's still good.
Most watched holiday film of all time, according to Google.
Really? Like all holidays? All holidays? Like including Christmas?
No, Halloween.
Okay. Well, that's good, to be clear.
For me, like when I think of cult classics, I think of like Carrie, and more specifically, have you seen Creep?
No.
It's one of my favorites.
I mean, we're in the season, so we'll figure out what our next...
We have to check that out. I mean, it's directed by Patrick Bryce, but that film really gave me the heebie-jeebies. But it's a very different type of vibe to it, you know? Clearly it's different. It's like a horror, slasher, thriller kind of thing. I just recently went to Screamfest. Oh, cool. Because I had a buddy, his film was, I think, debuting or premiering there. And I thought the energy was so intense and like palpable, like a bunch of cinephiles coming together for the love of hack and slashers, thrillers, and horror films, all in appreciation of the genre and this form of storytelling. So that was really exciting to be a part of. And Hocus Pocus had that kind of, it separates itself from that kind of entire vibe, but it still has this magic aspect to it. You know, it's magical, and it's just enough to really fill your cup and feel really like it's in spirit.
I mean, every single frame of that movie is Halloween. And so it's not one of those movies that features a couple scenes of Halloween. You could say, oh, it's my favorite Halloween movie, which I went on a social media spree where I saw anything with snow and said, that's my new favorite Christmas movie. And, you know, I think they say like Die Hard's a Christmas movie or something like that. And this is like unabashedly Halloween. And the set dressing is stunning. It has an orange hue and a purple hue.
I was surprised I didn't see any pumpkin spice lattes.
Starbucks was not out yet.
Was it not?
I don't think so.
Really? That'd be interesting, actually. That'd be interesting to find out.
So we would be hard-pressed to finish this podcast without talking about Kenny Ortega, Newsies, the High School Musical franchise. He directed Michael Jackson, produced Michael Jackson's last tour, This Is It. And he is a legend in his own right. And
GOAT.
Yeah, and I get chills because watching this movie on the big screen, there is a fluidity to all of the blocking that he does. And I didn't marvel at it growing up, but now that you see his influence, and I go, hey, if you're a former dancer who's directing, yes, give us what you know. And he does. And you would see them like effortlessly move and switch positions and And of course, there's a whole musical number that you just sit back and you just enjoy because Bet's voice just like rings out in the theater and it's memorable.
Right. I really love that. That's something that did stand out to me as well watching it. They kind of have a synchronicity with each other, and they kind of move as one unit as the witches, and they'll come and sway, and they'll do when they go into like a reciting a, what is it, a curse, a spell?
Sure, yeah.
You know, those things that witches do. They would have, their body language would have a certain choreographed kind of movement to it that really just sold the whole magical mysticism aspect of it.
Everything was a bit. Every little segment was like, and now we're doing this.
That was a really nice fairy dust sprinkle, as Troy would like to say.
Yes.
From the director, it was executed very well, and it was very skilled storytelling, especially with the time that it was released. You know, we talk about the cat, but you're right, the direction as well. Like,
the movie is not the movie. That would be a dramatically different movie without him. I can say that for sure.
Yeah. Well, Hocus Pocus, overall, what's the verdict?
You know, I like to say I have many different facets to my personality. So my grade comes from very specific things depending on what type of film it is. And for me, am I going to watch it again? Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, so that's huge. If I'm going to watch it again, now it's starting to go into a specific list of movies that I watch every year and that I hold special. Now I have memories of watching it with you, and now it's making it even more special. The next time I watch it, I'll be remembering this time. It's just an A+ for me.
I wrote down after like watching it, I was like, Hocus Pocus, it feels like a warm cup of hot cocoa.
And who doesn't love hot cocoa?
You know, it feels like autumn, and it smells like caramel apples, and it has a slight chill to the air. It's all just Hocus Pocus.
I get chills, and there's just like, I get tears.
Yeah,
I love it.
It really just captures the entire
it's so loving. And my thing is like, you change one thing and it's not Hocus Pocus. So if you change one thing and it's not the movie that you're going to get that you love, that's what I call perfect.
That's Hocus.
Pocus.
And that is the episode today, folks. Thank you for tuning in, and maybe we'll see you.
We'll definitely be seeing you again for the next episode. So we appreciate you sticking around.
Yeah, I want to thank Troy for being here, and I want to thank you, and we'll see you on the next episode.